What does Harry Potter tell us about depression and psychology? It's easy to assume that in our muggle world of healthcare that depression can be easily diagnosed, medicated for and treated. But if J.K. Rowling's depiction of her own depression and personal emotions through the Harry Potter stories is anything to go by, it shows that even she wasn't brave enough to manipulate the psychology of the characters in the same way she manipulated the characters' physical environment, biology, and chemistry. The themes which run throughout the books, such as love, power, and facing fears, take 7 books worth of character exploration to explain. Why? Well, was it because she was simply catering to an audience that required a level of realness in the stories to engage? Or do we as a society still not really understand human psychology as much as we think we do? Firstly, let's take a look at the sciences that the stories are willing to manipulate. Rowling is keen to allow her characters to be able to fly, levitate, acquire objects, create explosions, and kill each other, and even time travel. Why? Well, as far as the audience is concerned, the physical realities of the universe Rowling has created do not affect them. We don't experience our media in a Matrix-style reality in which we're inside the universe, so therefore the universe we create through fiction can be as dangerous and bizarre as the other likes. But she is limited by believability. After all, the characters still have to experience the psychological fear of physical pain, so gravity and other forms of energy are still present as they are in most stories. Science doesn't yet know how to manipulate time travel, for example, but it is in the aspiration of human beings, and therefore the audience accepts a world where belief is possible. Rowling also uses energy, such as light, as a physical personification for psychological concepts such as love, therefore proving that what we understand about the physical world is greater than what we understand about the psychological. J.K. Rowling is keen to manipulate the biology of its characters in much the same way. People can change their appearance, regrow hands, and even defeat death. Again, most of this is within the aspiration of medical science, but she also heavily explores the importance of genetics, and more importantly, how humans discriminate over them. In the wizarding world, you are highly regarded if you are pure blood, that is, if you don't breed with muggles at all, such as Lucius Malfoy. While in contrast, people with no magical bloodline or those that interact with muggles have a much lower status in society, such as Hermione Granger and Arthur Weasley. Rowling is not only exploring the way humans being discriminate ability versus disability, but also class. People in the world aspire to be on top and bully and belittle those below, much like in the real world. The only difference being, Rowling replaces our muggle obsession with wealth with a wizard obsession for magical ability, bloodlines, and power. Rowling favours chemicals which can cure ailments and alter appearances. The idea that you can just pull something out of your bag or conjure up something to make you better is actually still being used and believed in the real world. In Asia, they are particularly fond of using all kinds of herbs and remedies to cure all kinds of ailments. But in the books, there is one potion in particular that the author seems to treat with much more negativity. The love potion, which led to the conceivement of Voldemort and therefore his inability to love. It shows how skeptical we are of chemical elements to alter the mind, but also how little we understand and trust of the feelings of one to another. There have been many examples of how the sociological and political examples in Harry Potter draw unfavourably close to examples in the real world. I've already talked about racism, and certainly the actions of the Death Eaters are strikingly similar to white supremacists or even terrorists. Lord Voldemort draws similarities to Hitler or Kim Jong-un. The portrayal of the government and media in Rowling's world is just as untrustworthy in the real world. Cornelius Fudge denying Voldemort's return is an example. The key theme throughout the book is to believe one's friends and distrust authority. However, it also shows how misguided and stupid people can be. For example, the Wizarding World chose to mistrust Harry and Dumbledore rather than blame Voldemort's return for the death of Cedric Diggory. The main driving force of the story isn't the action of power and politics, but the individual psychological accomplishments of the characters. The moral being that you can do anything if you believe in yourself. Rowling doesn't change the personalities of the characters. Hermione is always intelligent, Voldemort is always evil, and Snape and Dumbledore are always the guiding forces for Harry. But they have two very different approaches coming from two very different intentions and life experiences. Rowling doesn't let the character magically change personality at any point in the series, and there's a growing theme of you are what you are. In Hogwarts, you are decided to a house based on personality, but that doesn't mean that the characters can't grow and make changes over time. For example, Lucius goes from being arrogant to being cowardly, and Neville Longbottom finds his bravery and goes on to defeat the Dark Lord. When characters such as Gilderoy Lockhart try to seem braver and more powerful than they really are, the focus is on how deceptive and how much of a con artist he is, rather than he's changed. With fixed personalities, it means we as an audience can invest in the characters, but it also makes it more realistic, so we in this study can fully explore our understanding of psychology. The second thing to help the audience invest in the stories is a drive by emotion rather than action. We are led through all the various settings and action through fear, bravery, love, happiness and unhappiness of each of the characters. The running theme being the catalyst for the story, loss. Harry has lost his parents, and so Rowling uses things like the mirror and the resurrection stone to personify the bereavement. Rowling herself was dealing with the loss of her mother at the time. It shows that we as a species still misunderstand and have difficulty dealing with our emotions, so much that we have to find imaginary outlets to personify them. In the real world, we use faith, or we may even just talk to ourselves. You can even find real-world examples of divination still going on. So Harry Potter captured the beliefs of many in a similar way. Perhaps we'll never fully understand or comprehend the feelings felt when we lose something or someone, because it is ingrained within us to not know beyond life. We cannot physically cross the place into death where we can no longer feel, therefore we have to feel. The second thing Rowling explores in detail is love. Voldemort is loveless, Harry's mother Lily never got the chance to love her son, and Snape always loved Lily. Not only is love a never-ending cycle, but Rowling personifies it with a Patronus. There's a deep understanding in the books that love is a bond which can't be unbroken, but the characters can't just magically remove all love from the world and live in a world that's loveless, because to do that would make a very boring story. Instead, it's clear that love is a necessity in life, and so is the pain and joy that go along with it. But like in the real world, there is no control of it. You might think that therefore means we understand psychology, but there's a striking similarity to the way Rowling demonizes pain, depression, loss, fear, and darkness as the evil dementors to the way we accuse scientists in medieval times of being witches. If we are of a similar understanding to those feelings as we were to physics, chemistry, and biology, then it proves how far back we are. Within the books, as within the real world, there is no psychological counter to those feelings. Instead, Rowling uses the Expecto Patronum spell, and in the real world we can use things like medication, counselling, faith, herbal remedies, and even divination. But talking to someone else and having chemicals change our psychology doesn't change our personality. It doesn't make us no longer feel bad feelings, or better more, no longer be inflicted by negative feelings, just like in the books and movies. Perhaps the greatest understanding we can draw from the Harry Potter stories is that we are who we are. The only difference between the real world and the books is that in the real world, we write our own stories. Do you agree with me? Do we understand as little about the mind as Harry Potter's jest? Or is this all we're ever going to understand anyway? Let me know in the comments below and subscribe.